Alright, so this is how to make a pencil cap on a sewing machine. So step one is to cut 2 layers of fabric. This is actually 2 layers. You can see I've just flipped them around and put them together. So what I've done is I've cut them, then I've overlaid one so that it hangs off a bit here. So the inside one is shorter than the outside one. And then just folded it over and folded it over and ironed. And you could leave them the same length, but the edge hem would be kind of thick when it's a double layer. So I just prefer to make one shorter than the other and do it this way. So the first step is to do this. The second step is to sew here. So I'm going to do that. All right, so now I've got this sewn. It's just a simple straight stitch along the edge. If you cut like without a ruler, then you just want to make sure that there are no spots where it'll slide out. In case it wasn't like perfectly evenly cut. So this is what it looks like from the front. And perfect straight cuts are not essential. Because you're going to be trimming around the edge, and you'll see what I mean. So the dimensions that I've found that work really well for the machine sewn one is 2.5 inches tall, and it's about 5/8 inches wide. And if you are I found that the 5/8 inches works really well for like a round pencil or a hexagonal pencil. If you have a triangular pencil or are using Ticonderogas, you probably want to go down to 1/2 inch or even a little bit less than that to get, a good snug fit. So the next step is this. And I also should mention that the wider your fabric is here, this one will probably make 4 or 5 pencil cases. I'm not really sure how wide it is. It's about 9 inches wide. Doesn't really matter how wide it is, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to fold. Okay, so I'm going to fold it like this. Now I just want to check to make sure that this is more than 5/8 inches, and yeah, it is. And so I'm going to leave a little bit. I can even make it a bit shorter than this, so I don't waste so much. So you want to make sure it's more than 5/8 inches wide, which is, yeah, that's plenty. So this is, okay. So it's plenty wide, and you're going to be trimming the excess at the end, and I'll show you how that works. But you want it more than 5/8 inches this way. Now I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to make a pencil mark at 2.5 inches. Where's my stubby little pencil? So 2.5 inches is right here. And you're going to make a pencil mark here, but this, you want to make a pencil mark where you're going to trim. So this part is going to get cut off, but that's where my pencil mark is. And so now I'm going to use a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to sew back and forth along this line here. And then I'll show you the next step. Alright, so I've sewn here. And that's all set. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 5/8 inches and place a mark. So I'm going to place a mark, you can't really see it, but it's going to be above where the stitches are, because again, this part is going to get cut off. That's actually a little more than 5/8 inches. So I'm going to do another one because I like it to be really, really tight so they don't fall off. Okay, so I'm going to use the inside marker, and I'm going to sew down. And to place my presser foot, I'm going to start way up here, but this part is going to get cut off. So when you get like over the over this stitch, over like this area right here where you've already sewn, you're gonna want to go back and forth to reinforce it, because if you backstitch up here, it's gonna get cut off, so it'll unravel. So you want to sew down a little bit, backstitch, and then keep going to the end, and then also backstitch down here, because when you get to the middle, you're going to be cutting it this way, so these stitches here need to be reinforced, and you need to make sure that you've sewn them down so things don't unravel. So I'll show you what it looks like at the end of that step. Alright, so this is what it looks like after that, and you can see I've backstitched here a little bit. So now I'm going to cut, and I found that it's easier to just cut along here. Okay, so the trick to this step is you want to cut as close to those stitches as you can without actually cutting the stitches. And I can tell you right now, I used a pretty dark fabric and black thread, and that was a huge mistake because I kept snipping the stitches, and then you have to go back and reinforce it, and it doesn't look as good. So I'll recommend, if you're using like multicolored fabric, like here's an example. So if I were using this, I'd probably match it to this dot or this dot, but I would not match it to the navy blue because that's going to be impossible to see. This is all assuming that you want matching thread. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Just use a color that's different enough so that you can see. Okay, so I'm going to cut. And if you started sewing like way back here, it's okay to cut those stitches a little bit because you've reinforced it further down. So I'm going to cut there, and then I'm going to cut this bit here. And just trim any excess threads that you might have. Okay, so there is your pencil cap. And that actually fits quite snugly on this pencil. Yeah, this one's pretty good. So when I started thinking about making these and that I was going to cut the edge here, I mean, you can see that there's a little bit of fraying. This fabric is super weird. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but it's like shiny and it kind of feels plasticky. So this fabric in particular, yeah, I bought it off the internet, couldn't feel it, probably wouldn't have bought it if I had felt it first. This fabric is actually pretty great for this because it doesn't fray a whole heck of a lot. Now, when I started thinking about making them, I made these with a couple of different fabrics, like more standard cotton, and they frayed a little bit more, and I've just been trimming the edges because there were a couple prototypes and it just didn't bother me. I've also purchased pinking shears and something that someone told me in a sewing group called Fray Check, which I guess is a liquid that you can put on the edges and it stops fraying. So I haven't received them yet. I ordered them online, haven't received them yet, and so I'm going to try one of those two options or both, see what I like and see if it stops the fraying, because it's not going to look this good forever. So you might want to try one of those. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know enough about those methods to be able to give you any more information on that, but that's pretty much how it works. Fairly simple. I think I didn't mention in the beginning that the reason I use at least two layers of fabric is for the same reason that in my previous hand sewing video, I wrapped it a couple times, and that's just because if you have a really sharp pencil and you do one layer of fabric, it's gonna poke through. And I have some pretty sharp pencils, and they haven't poked through two layers. So it seems to hold up pretty well. I definitely wouldn't do one layer. If you have a super thin fabric, 3 might be necessary, but I don't use fairly standard cotton. It seems to work okay. So that's how you make a pencil cap on a machine.